Every year, one hidden bottleneck decides which AI stocks move next. So what's 2020's CXS bottleneck? This is the four-company breakdown: brain, eyes, muscle, simulation behind the next physical AI trade. In 2022, that bottleneck was chips. The world had run out of them. Cars sat unfinished in parking lots. Phone makers rationed supply. And one company made the silicon that suddenly nobody could live without. NVIDIA didn't invent the chip shortage. It just happened to sit exactly where the shortage hurt the most, at the center of AI computing. Its market value moved from a mid-sized chipmaker to one of the most valuable companies on Earth in the space of 2 years. By 2024, the story had shifted. The problem was no longer making the chips. It was powering them. AI data centers were consuming electricity at a pace the grid wasn't built for. Utilities that had spent a decade managing flat demand were suddenly being asked to double it. Vistra, a power generation company most people outside the energy sector had never heard of, became one of the clearest ways to be positioned for that demand. The lesson from that year was simple: whoever owns the bottleneck the market hasn't priced in yet, owns the next move. In 2025, the bottleneck moved again, this time to memory. Training and running large AI models doesn't just need processing power. It needs somewhere to hold enormous volumes of data, moving at extreme speed. Micron and AMD, both already established chip companies, saw demand for high-bandwidth memory and AI accelerators outrun supply almost overnight. Their stock moves that year were smaller than NVIDIA's in 2022, but the pattern was the same: a physical constraint the AI boom hadn't accounted for, hiding in plain sight. The same year, a second bottleneck appeared next to it. As AI clusters grew larger, the limiting factor stopped being how fast a chip could compute and became how fast data could move between chips. Lumentum and Coherent, companies that make the optical components moving that data at light speed, went from niche photonics suppliers to critical AI infrastructure almost overnight. 4 bottlenecks in 4 years. Chips, power, memory, data movement. Each one looked obvious only after it had already happened. Which brings us to January 2026, and the moment Jensen Huang stood on stage at CES and said something that sounded, at first, like more hype. The ChatGPT moment for physical AI is here, Huang said, when machines begin to understand, reason, and act in the real world. He was describing a shift away from AI that only lives on a screen writing text, generating images, toward AI that has to survive contact with gravity, friction, and the physical world. Boston Dynamics showed a production-ready humanoid shipping this year. Hyundai announced plans to build 30,000 robotic units a year by 2028. This is no longer a research demo. It's a supply chain being built in real time. So if physical AI is the next bottleneck, where exactly is it? Huang's own framing breaks it into 4 layers, and each layer has its own company sitting inside it. The first layer is the brain. Every robot needs a processor that can turn raw camera and sensor data into a decision, in real time, on the machine itself. That's the same company that owned the chip bottleneck in 2022, now selling the compute layer for robots instead of data centers. The second layer is the eyes. A robot that can't reliably tell a good part from a defective one, or a person from a shelf, is a robot that can't be trusted on a factory floor. Cognex makes the machine vision systems used to inspect and guide equipment across manufacturing and logistics. As of mid-2026, the company reported close to $1 billion in annual revenue and said it added roughly 9,000 new customers in a single year, evidence that vision is scaling alongside the robots that depend on it. Its own estimate puts the addressable machine vision market at around $7 billion, growing roughly 10% a year. The third layer is the muscle, the actuators and physical mechanisms that let a robot actually move, grip, and apply force without breaking itself or whatever it's touching. Teradyne, through its Universal Robots and Mobile Industrial Robots divisions, builds collaborative robot arms and mobile units already deployed across factories and warehouses. In 2026, the company began shipping what it calls its first dedicated physical AI product, a pallet-handling robot built for environments too unpredictable for older automation. And the fourth layer is simulation. Before a robot is trusted with a real factory, it has to fail over and over inside a digital copy of that factory, or a mistake costs nothing. That's the role NVIDIA's Omniverse platform plays, a digital twin environment where robotics companies can run millions of practice attempts before a single physical unit is switched on. Put together, brain, eyes, muscle, and simulation form a full stack, and it's worth noticing that the same company shows up twice, at the brain layer and the simulation layer. That's not an accident. It's the same positioning NVIDIA used in the 2022 chip cycle, applied to an entirely new market. Here's why this matters beyond any single company. Every previous AI bottleneck lived inside a data center: chips, power, memory, data movement. Physical AI is the first one that has to walk out the front door and operate in a warehouse, a hospital, or a street. That also means the risk profile is different. A chip shortage delays a product launch. A misjudging robot on a factory floor, or a self-driving system that misreads a pedestrian, has consequences that are immediate and physical, which is exactly why companies in this space talk as much about safety certification and reliability testing as they do about growth. None of this is a guarantee that any specific company wins. Chip cycles, power cycles, and memory cycles all eventually cooled off, and some early leaders in each cycle gave back a large share of their gains once the hype caught up with the fundamentals. The more useful habit, if you're trying to understand where this goes next, is watching which layer of the stack, brain, eyes, muscle, or simulation, is quietly running out of supply, the same way memory and data movement quietly ran out of supply in 2025 before most people noticed. For bottlenecks predicted the last 4 years of the AI trade almost perfectly. Whether physical AI becomes bottleneck number 5, or turns out to be years ahead of its own hype, is the one part of this pattern nobody gets to see in advance. This isn't investment advice, it's a pattern worth understanding before it becomes obvious to everyone else.